Today, we are cracking open the official playbook for protecting the Philippines' absolutely incredible wildlife. Now, this one document, it's meant to untangle a really complex web of who's supposed to do what. So let's dive in and see how it all works.
It seems like a pretty simple question, right? But for years, the answer was, well, it was complicated. And that complication meant confusion, loopholes, and so many missed chances to stop the illegal wildlife trade. This document, the Joint Administrative Order, was designed to finally clear all that up.
And the answer to that big question? It takes a team. This Joint Administrative Order is their official playbook. The whole point is to get multiple government departments on the exact same page, all working together to protect the nation's amazing natural treasures.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with why this new rulebook was even necessary in the first place. Then we'll meet the key players and break down their specific jobs. And finally, we'll connect all the dots and see why this teamwork is so important for the future of Philippine wildlife.
Okay, so what is this new rulebook really all about? Well, at its core, it's about getting rid of confusion and bringing in coordination. Think of it like a blueprint that makes sure every single agency knows exactly what its job is and, just as importantly, how that job fits into the bigger picture. Let's actually look at the official language right from Section 1. It uses some really important words: responsive, accountable, and decentralization. Now, what does that actually mean? In simple terms, this is all about shifting power. It's designed to move wildlife protection from some far-off, top-down command into a much more local, hands-on effort. All right, to understand the playbook, you've got to know the players and the lingo. So let's make sure we're all on the same page. So the team is built around three main agencies. First, you have the DNR. That's the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Then there's the DA, or the Department of Agriculture. And finally, the DILG, which is the Department of the Interior and Local Governments. Each one has a totally different but absolutely vital role to play. First things first, what do we even mean by wildlife? Now, when this document says wildlife, it's not just talking about animals you'd find in a forest. It covers all wild animal species at every single stage of life, from eggs all the way to adults. It even includes animals that are already in captivity or are being bred. It's a really broad definition. Next up is something called the local transport permit. And this is a huge one. It's the key piece of paper. If you need to legally move wildlife from one part of the Philippines to another, you absolutely have to have one of these from the DNR. No exceptions. And finally, we have wildlife byproducts. This is so important because the law doesn't just protect live animals. It also covers any part taken from them. We're talking feathers, scales, meat, leather, you name it. By regulating these, the law can go after the entire supply chain of the illegal trade, not just the poachers. Okay, let's break down the team, starting with player number 1, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR. You can think of them as the head coaches for this whole operation. Their main job is to set the strategy. The DNR is the one that comes up with the national policies, the rules, and the guidelines for protecting wildlife across the entire country. Basically, they create the game plan that everyone else has to follow. So what does that actually look like on the ground? Well, they're in charge of training. They deputize officers from other agencies to become official wildlife enforcement officers. They also run public awareness campaigns. They help coordinate arrests of illegal traders. And they give expert advice to local governments that want to create their own wildlife laws. They're both the leaders and the trainers. All right, on to our next player, the Department of Agriculture, or DA. Now, if the DNR are the head coaches, think of the DA as the specialists who focus on animal health, welfare, and all the logistics. Their number one job is all about the well-being of the animals themselves. So anytime wildlife is being moved, for whatever reason, the DNA steps in to make sure it's being done the right way, safely and humanely. And here's how they do it. They train local government units on how to properly handle animals, and they create all sorts of educational materials. But here's the really crucial part. They manage the paperwork. They make sure that any shipping permit is backed by an official certificate of wildlife registration. This directly connects an animal's welfare to whether or not it's being transported legally. And that brings us to our third key player, the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG.
These guys are the essential link that takes the national strategy and brings it down to every single city, province, and town. They are the local champions.
I mean, think about it. A brilliant national plan is pretty useless if it just sits in an office in the capital city. The DILG's job is to make sure that the playbook designed by the DNER and DA actually gets into the hands of local governments, the mayors, the governors, and all their teams, and that they actually know how to use it. So their to-do list is all about communication and getting people moving. They get local leaders to actually implement the law. They make sure copies of this order get sent out everywhere. They help the other agencies check if people are following the rules, and they actively encourage local governments to pass their own laws to make wildlife protection even stronger in their own backyards. So we've met the team, we've seen their individual roles, but why is this coordinated approach such a game changer? What does it actually change on the ground? Well, this teamwork leads directly to real-world results. First, clearer rules mean no more confusion, no more finger-pointing. Second, coordinated action means agencies are actually helping each other instead of working in their own little bubbles. This also empowers local communities. It gives them the authority and the knowledge to act. And all of that leads to what really matters: stronger, unified enforcement. So imagine a tip comes in about illegal trafficking. Now, the DNR coordinates the intel. The DA advises on how to handle the rescued animals, and the DILG makes sure the local police are ready to move in. That is the kind of power this order creates. So the strategy is set, the roles are defined, and the teams are all there. This joint administrative order provides a really powerful framework for action. But the ultimate question now is how well this playbook will be executed out in the real world. Because really, the future of the Philippines' incredible wildlife depends on it.